Okay, we're
As
recording?
Sorry?
I'm just saying, I was telling everybody we're recording.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
As a facilitator, one of the things I want to say is that this document that's on the website for the steps and so on does not start with the facilitator, and it was confusing to me. I read that to review, so it's something that I would recommend get reviewed for these kinds of circles.
So you would include the facilitator's role in that how-to. Is that what you're saying?
Right. It says it starts, number one, the first person selects who they will speak to.
Right.
My understanding is the first person is the facilitator, who is the first listener. Is that correct?
Well, no, it's actually, that was attributed to me and I never said that. So what I think it's an outgrowth of is that if there are new people and they're not familiar with reflective listening, so
Right.
the facilitator could be, there's no rule against it either, but there's no, so the facilitator could be the first person to listen, to role model it. But like in a group like this, where everybody really knows how to do it, it's not, that's not how it occurs. Also, when you're on the street, you essentially, you do become the first listener, you do. But you're not quite identifying yourself as a facilitator. So that is some place where we could use some clarity.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's all.
Mhm.
Okay, so we will then ask a volunteer to be the first speaker.
Mhm.
And who is going to volunteer to be the first speaker?
I'll be the first speaker.
Okay, thank you, Bill. And you will select your listener.
Okay.
And then we will start. We don't have those prompts on the chat, but I think it's pretty clear that we're going to talk about our experience in this.
Oh, there it is again. Somebody, Rita just put it in again. Beat me to it, Rita. You young people and your technical skills.
Yes.
Okay, I'll speak to Michelle first.
Okay.
Okay.
Lovely.
All right. 5 minutes, yeah?
Okay. So my experience of the training is to, what is it? I'm trying to, I guess, to gather up and summarize. I'm trying to hit a sweet spot. I'm a teacher, I'm a retired teacher, a special education teacher. So I had many times, like I had kids in my classroom who had a very low IQ and very high IQ at the same time. And so I would have to sort of create social norms and then also speak in a way that would help make the information, whatever I was trying to explain, accessible to people on all different levels. And although I'm not calling you or anybody watching this special ed students, nevertheless, when you're dealing with the public, you do deal with a wide variety of skill and experience. I'll stop there.
Okay. So you're trying to collate all the documentation and all the kind of everything that you have so far on empathy circles, and like your background was as a teacher, but it really kind of broadened your eyes to diversity, and that there is like a kind of very wide range of like backgrounds and maybe like visible and invisible kind of and that yes, you're like, that's what you're bringing to the table, is that like you can create content that like serves kind of right across that spectrum.
Right. Well, that's the goal. How successful we are in the goal is you know, that's what that's what we're reviewing here. So what I tried to do is originally and I've had to revise it a bit, but like I had to take, okay, somebody who hasn't had this experience before, you know. So first of all, I think it's very important to give people the listening experience, because the experience goes beyond explanation. If I were to explain the empathy circle to you and just say, oh, this is great, you'd be bored. And you know, and that's where I think it's an excellent tool in a way, because it is so vanilla in a way, the tool, but it's what people bring to it that gives it life and gives you the experience. I'll stop there.
Yeah. Cool. So like, yeah, it is really like more something that you experience, and it's like it's the listening experience that is the learning. Like it's not really a textbook kind of an activity. And I like, so on the surface it might look kind of, it may seem vanilla, but like it's the experience that brings that to light, alive, and that what everybody bring, you know, what people bring to it. So yeah, so you're working with this like kind of like how much do you package something that's experiential?
Right. So you have to include. So I think that for anybody to be motivated to do this, they have to have that experience of being heard and listening to each other, because that's the experience. And then the question is, how long do you do it? You can't teach everything.
Time.
And then you have the limitation, as Celine just so eloquently said, of time. And I'll stop there.
Yeah, you kind of need to experience it to be motivated or to get it, and then yeah, there's like limitations, or with like just practicalities of like time, like when it's an experience, and so you're still kind of going back and forth on what's the sweet spot for how you put this together.
Thanks, Michelle. I feel fully heard.
Cool.
Thank you. Okay. So Michelle, you now get to pick someone to listen to you.
Nice, yeah. AC, could you? Nice.
Okay. So go ahead. You have 5 minutes, Michelle.
Yeah. I'm just it feels like this is like, really important. Like I remember like in the second training I was kind of trying to do like prepare the intro piece to my circle, and like it was like, you know, empathy, like if you want, you can't, like if the world is made of people, like people is made of culture, and culture is made of like, you know, ideas and thoughts and viewpoints and perspectives. Like if you want to have a meaningful impact in the world, then you know the way to do it is through deepening empathy, you know, so that we can see and hear and understand each other, and you know that has the power to bring about profound change. And so I feel like what is happening with this movement is it gives me, like, I'm deeply inspired by it, and I think it's movements like this that are going to bring about real change. I'll pause there.
So I hear you feeling the gravity of this practice and its importance in like touching the culture. And you noted, I heard you note as you were preparing your intro for the second training, looking at the relation between the people stemming from the culture, stemming from all the way down to the ideas. So just, I hear you acknowledging the gravity in this as being like something that can permeate those lines of communication or what have you.
Yeah. I was on a I was on a 5-day like monastic retreat today. It's like this a really senior monk. He's like 40 years of practice, and he's leading 5 days online. And he was trying to distill everything of the Buddha's teachings down into like a teaching, you know. And he's like, we can spend like 5 days here, like, or you can spend 5 years or 50 years, like going through all of these teachings and going to kind of like, you know, all of these practices. But he's like, what is that thing? Like, you know, what is that jhana? Like, what is that special magic of when you speak from your heart and somebody really hears you and you go, ah, like, what is that? Yeah, it was like, yeah, that's what empathy is. It's like, it's that magic that people are, you know what I mean? It's beyond the, yeah. So it's kind of, it felt a beautiful moment. It was like, yeah, like what's happening in the empathy circles is really important.
So it sounds like you're finding some of the same magic coming in through other roads in your life. So 5 days with like a monastery kind of practice where they're talking about similar things of the magic of being heard.
Yep. That's it. Yeah. 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 And I've come to like so many like moments like that, both like last week and over the different weeks of like just really like, yeah, but just really, really lovely connections that I kind of like there's something deeper and different to that than like it's cultivating a kind of much deeper level of like, yeah, I'm really grateful. Yeah, that's my time. Yeah, cool.
Great. So I hear you are finding this like just over and over again. It's like a recurring theme, just how important this is, just how magic it is, and like the lovely feeling of the empathy coming through throughout the culture from like so many different ways.
Yeah, completely. That's it. Yeah, I love it. Cool. I feel fully heard. Nice.
You feel fully, okay, great.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Michelle.
Nice.
Okay, Rita, may I speak to you?
Yes, I'm listening.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely resonate with what Michelle is saying for just how important this like this work and this concept of empathy is in like the current day kind of practice. I'm finding myself on campus a lot having the same realization, and I think maybe similar conversations with there's a buddy that I made who just sits outside my office most of the day. He does like caretaking and stuff, but he's like the only other person in the building, so we're friends now. And we're talking about this stuff a lot too. I keep going back to the cultural or the significance of culture as a driving force for wide or like broader change throughout the society. Maybe I'll pause there.
Yeah, so you think about empathy a lot and how you can apply it in your life, and it's really brought you and your colleague together that are the only people in your whole building. And yeah, and that you're just seeing and sensing that empathy is like real, or like culture is like a real, or empathy is connected into the driving like a new culture. Did I get that right?
Yeah, totally. And so I really like the name of the group as building a culture of empathy, more than just like a practice, or more than just like I don't know, and like, you know, 100 of the different ways that we can phrase like what we're trying to do here. I think culture is like a really solid term for how to do it, and I think it really resonates as far as like both things that I think will bring about change and things that I'm finding greater and greater value in, just as like a person looking to places of culture to kind of ascribe to, or like, you know, sit myself inside of, almost belong to. Feels very, I don't know, welcoming, fulfilling, maybe meaningful in that sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, yeah, you're really connected to this word like culture, and like building a culture rather than just the empathy being a practice, it being a part of, yeah, like creating a the way we want culture to be. And yeah, and it's also pointing to the things that you value in life. So it's not just a culture making mechanism, it's also a value enhancing mechanism.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and so like, I mean, I really value this culture, and I love the initiative. I want to connect it to the training here too. So I like the training and the whole like circle concept, as being something that's very practical and tangible, as far as like a way to really work like consistently on the culture, right? It's like that element of practice that will help like build and kind of aggregate into something at a more cultural level, right? Like it's a small or like a finite thing and a very specific thing that we can do to be like, okay, let's do this. And the more that we do it, the more that we kind of like take on some of the principles that we talked about in the first session, which I found very enlightening and very like fun to think about and kind of brainstorm with. So like the practice I find really helps with those. And so yeah, I guess I like the training for stating those, and then presenting the way, or a way maybe, to bring those about through like our own personal experiences, and then like interpersonal experiences as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you really found the values of the culture of empathy really useful to kind of get to know in the beginning. It was useful for it to be stated clearly. And then, yeah, and then the circle process has also been very helpful to keep the structure of it going.
Yeah, and just to offer like that very concrete piece of structure that we can build off of.
Yeah, you find the circle structure very useful because it helps to build like the culture from that circle container, I guess.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, Rita. I feel fully heard.
Okay, no worries. Celine, will you listen to me?
Yes, I will. Okay. I'm ready.
Okay. I'm just reading the questions. Yeah, I guess I'm like Bill as well, that I'm just kind of looking at the training overall and seeing where there's gaps and where they need to be filled, I suppose, or the connections need to be made to really get this this process being out in the world in a more visible and easily like accepted way.
So I'm hearing that you're kind of looking over the process and the training that just happened, at the gaps, especially, that you would like to see filled and attended to as the training is being shared around the world.
Yeah, and I feel this like 5 weeks is really, or yeah, 4 or 5 weeks is like really good to set it's almost like an introductory foundations training for like how to facilitate, which is really great. And then I really like love the idea of having like another 4 weeks where it's like the advanced or the intermediate course that people can kind of go over to and deepen their experience and their skills if they like to. I mean, I guess the structure, like people can repeat the training if they like, and that can be sort of like their advanced or intermediate training. But there's also like something to be had, something extra when it's actually an intermediate course and everyone that's going there is at an intermediate level, so you can go deeper as a group and be more specific with feedback, and you're not covering the same material as you would have in an introductory course. So I think there's a bit of value in that.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things you've been thinking about is that the way the course is designed with the 4 weeks of an introduction works. And then some people take the course again, and so they're stronger in their skills. But there's another option, which would be to have an intermediate focus so that people go deeper and more advanced rather than repeating the same, deepening the same skills, gather more skills.
Exactly, because I think like, practicing what we did in the last week of, having challenges that are at your edge, whatever that is, testing that, needs to be done more and for longer, because I could just kind of sense that, I don't know, even for me, it's just like, there's this kind of like little fear that keeps me in my safe zone, and to just, be able to be exposed to like, more scenarios and more like hardcore challenges like helps me be at ease with the process, as well as like how to like have role play scenarios about how to use this in real life when someone else doesn't have the empathy skills, or you're not going to set up a structure, because I think when I've done empathy cafes in real life or online, it's like people, I think I get the impression that people's psyches like to keep themselves safe. So it's like in the beginning, when you're doing this work, it's like people aren't used to, or they don't have the skills to continually take themselves out of their comfort zone and be comfortable with that. So it's like there needs to be a lot of like options to have support with that until people get used to it or have different skills for that kind of thing.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that you like the idea of going deeper and having more training and more feedback in preparation for more difficult situations that you can't really anticipate, and that without that perhaps you see a certain tendency for people to keep themselves safe and not to open up to unexpected challenges that could come in some circles.
I guess I feel like it doesn't take the like if there is a space for like intermediate and advanced experiences in this, like I guess I just kind of feel like I want this for myself. It's just like I want to just do like nonviolent communication training and get me all the mediations, like skills and experiences, because then it's just then I can feel more resilient when a challenge comes up. And I mean, I think I do have more skills now than I did like 3 years ago, which sometimes is hard to see, but I am more comfortable now with like conflict and conflict and things like that. And that has come with reorientating my inner landscape to listen to feedback in a different way. And that, you know, that composes of like lots of different layers of like micro skills, I suppose, that is like beyond, well, that active listening is a key component of it. There's all these other bits around it, which I'd love to like pass on to other people. Yeah.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that you've had a lot of experience in not just active listening, but then you use them all when in certain circles that might be kind of challenging. You have experiences, you have skills from different experiences that you can bring to the listening circle, and that you would like to share them more with people and would like to help people be prepared for challenges that are unexpected that come in an empathy circle.
Yeah, I feel most excited and passionate about like grounding people in something that I see as like holistic, and whilst at the same time like also accepting that this, you know, there's always like more to learn and practice, and that this is like a beautiful package the way it is. And yeah, it can be built on from that, and I'm interested in the building on that a little bit more, maybe. Yeah.
I'm hearing you use the word, saying that you have a sense of a holistic practice and skills that build on each other, and you have a great interest in seeing how this can happen, how people can learn different skills and build on what they have beyond what is possible, say, in a 4-week training, and even repeating the 4-week training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for listening, Celine. Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so now I will speak, yes. And I'll ask Bill to listen to me.
Listening?
Yes. Okay. So I first heard of empathy circles quite a few years ago, and I have been a nonviolent communication trainer for many years. And I gathered a small group of the trainers in my area and told them, I said, hey, I've just been hearing about these, empathy tent. Mm-hmm. Empathy tent, and this is why, what is this? Are you interested? And I got laughed at, and I was very hurt. So I left it all. I dropped it. I dropped those people as well. So that was my first introduction to empathy circles.
So you had heard about empathy circles several years ago, and you were part of the NVC community. And when you, it sounded exciting to you, and you suggested it to the people in your NVC group, and they kind of laughed at you. And so you kind of dropped the idea, but you also dropped them as well.
Yes. And so now, having been through this training, I am very excited about the possibilities, because I think it's can be available for a very wide range of people and in different circumstances.
So actually, after experiencing the training, you are very excited about it because you feel that this is a useful tool that can be employed in various ways in various circumstances.
Yes. And I want to keep learning. I want to take Rita's advanced course And I want to be ready after January 20th to listen to the Trump supporters I think are suffering. And I would love to be able to do that as a service.
So you're interested, you'd love to take Rita's advanced course. And that one challenge that you would look forward to stepping up for is to listen to the Trump supporters after January 20th as providing a service for them, listening to them empathically.
Yes, that's my biggest ambition with this. I'm definitely not there yet. And so in terms of these questions, I want to answer one of the things that was very helpful for me was the core team, the skillfulness, the kindness, and there was a sense of joy in sharing this. And I love that. So that's something that has helped me a lot.
So what you liked about the training was the attitude of the core team, and the sense of generosity and sharing and joy, and that was infectious and helpful.
Yeah. And what else? What time? So I loved getting right to practice from the get-go. It shocked me. I wasn't prepared, but it was like, which is how I think as it would be in the world. It is in the world. It's like, show up now. No waiting room. Yeah.
So one thing you really liked about the training was the fact that we got you into the practice right away. And it was a bit shocking, but it was also preparing you for the real world, because that's how the real world shows up without preamble or
Yeah. Thank you. The sense that sometimes there was a sense of not enough time, and that I didn't like. That was contracting and kind of tense.
Yeah. So you did find that there were certain time constraints, and that was sort of contracting. That kind of interrupted the flow.
Yeah. And thank you. I feel fully heard, and my 5 minutes are up.
Okay, sure, Celine. All right. Let's see. I'll go to AC. Okay.
Okay.
So I really, I do like, I've seen a lot of Rita's suggestions, and I find that they're really substantive, and, they add, heft. And so I like that. I weigh that with how much time we have here, and whether those things should be like for an advanced, but we're thinking somewhat soon, would be fleshed out in an advanced or intermediate training. I'll stop there.
And so Rita's points about the further trainings and the feedbacks are landing with you, and you're taking them into consideration, looking for the balance with the time aspect challenge. Right.
And as far as though, the challenges, and this is partially, I'm kind of, I don't usually give challenge. I mean, that's not my nature in the circles or things like that. I was a teacher. And so I kind of, but really what I found, having done it, is that it's not necessarily in a Zoom room with disruptions, although I'm sure that can be fleshed out more. But it's really when you get out of the Zoom room, if you're going to talk advanced, it's like when you're walking on the street and you're in the street. So it's taking them into these different environments, as I see as sort of those next steps. I'll stop there.
So I hear you exploring the possibilities of the different challenge levels to add into possibly a more advanced training. And I hear you saying that like the Zoom room is kind of well bounded in the sense that you know you can control the distractions, where the real challenges come in is out in the world. You're walking on the sidewalk or interfacing with like a busy street or so.
Yeah, I mean, just different environments. And then the other thing is that none of this I have to give Edwin his props, because none of them, because he goes and he does all of this tedious stuff that drives me right up the wall. You know, there's them things, and he, you know, does this, and he's attending this meeting, and already I would, you know, I'd start to have palpitations. So I'll stop there.
Okay, so I hear you acknowledging the work, effort, and value that Edwin adds to the team, and then I also hear something, and I'm not totally quite sure on it, but something about it sounds like a tension in like his methodology versus how you would do things.
No, no. The fact that he goes to, and it's really he produces it. He sends out the emails and things like that. All of those things are very valuable, but as tasks for me, like I love this, but tasks for me, I find those difficult tasks. And so what I'm looking at advancing my own training and really producing it, which is really what you need to do, is to try to break that down into digestible things for me, so that I could then, you know, finally at one point, you know, do a production like this.
Okay.
Advertise it and doing stuff like that. He does a great job. It's necessary. But you know, I'm not worthy. So.
Okay, so it's not that like his method is at odds with what you do. It's like he's doing all these tasks and producing the stuff, and like those tasks are the things that make your heart start to race a little bit.
Yeah, it's just like I don't want to go to every meeting that he goes to. I don't want to you know, worry about this and then the follow-ups and stuff like that, even though I know it's valuable work. Yeah. And I look forward to but meeting, that's a challenge for me. And so that's something that I look forward to meeting, and I'm part. Thank you.
Okay. So just to reflect that last bit, so like the behind the scenes kind of logistical work is what you really appreciate that Edwin's bringing to the table. Those are areas of challenge for yourself where you could elevate and stuff up. But you said that you're more like, you're a teacher, right? So you're more like in the circle. Let's do it. Let's have fun with it.
Yeah, I'm irresponsible. Let's just be honest.
Thank
you, AC. I feel fully heard.
Right, thanks, Bill.
Sure.
Cool. Michelle, may I speak to you?
Oops.
Sweet. Okay, I really identify with Bill in that irresponsibility tip, and like I don't want to produce things. I don't want to make events and stuff. I tried to do it with XR. I didn't like. That turns out I need accountability partners to do it. So that was amazing, like self-awareness, learning and reflecting moment in the rebellion. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate it's always kind of reassuring or a little validating hearing like your ideas coming from someone else's experience.
Yep. So you want to do the circles and you want to facilitate them and do all the like goodness, but you don't want to do the adult bit.
Yep. Yeah, all fun, no work.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's really interesting as like an element that gets overlooked, at least in my eyes, at first on the facilitator side of things. Like I can set up and tell people how to do this and like, you know, keep time and like explain the thing like all day, and that's all good. But then like there is still a lot more work that goes around like really the facilitation of these circles, I guess locally, and that's something that I guess I've been confronting maybe not as explicitly or as like with as much awareness as I'm seeing now that we're talking about it, but just like pulling a group of people together to do it, and like, you know, planning the time, planning the space and all those things. It's like the behind the scenes work of the facilitation. Yeah, it's like almost, it feels like maybe a secondhand aspect of the training. I'm not, so yeah, I'll pause there. I don't have like suggestions or anything what to do about it. I'm just like kind of seeing it.
Yeah, so like there's like kind of like this, like it's kind of a two-pronged thing, like of like there's the facilitation, but then there's all the stuff that goes around it, like all the administrative stuff. And it's like the administrative stuff is just like you kind of, yeah, you're just kind of coming more into like just like looking at all of that and being like, there's a lot in, like it's just a lot of responsibility and accountability, and it's a lot of like having to have your kind of stuff together that's a bit like but you know it's important, and you're like, you're not trying to solve it, you're just trying to like kind of like be with it first and just be like, okay.
Yeah, totally. Just see it, be with it, and just recognize and go, oh yeah. Yeah. And I think like, I think that all, just seeing it too kind of gives, I don't know, maybe like my idea, if I can brainstorm for a second, like that looks like really solid content for like a part 2 training. So step 1 is like, and they say, right, if you want to master something, teach it. So like as this welcome to the empathy circle culture or what have you, to be able to present the practice to other people and present the values and things as like, you know, a really solid way to learn about the culture. But then the next step seems to be like, okay, now let's grow it. Now let's plant these seeds in other people. And I think that like sowing of the values and the seeds and stuff is very parallel, very like connected to that administrative logistical work. So yeah, I see how that might be like a good like next step. Okay, thank you, Celine.
We're at time, are we?
Yeah.
So like for you, it's really like, if you want to master something, teach it, and that like in that process, that like to kind of get that disseminated out to lots of people, you really feel that like it's the admin and the structure is actually where like that really effective dissemination happens. And it's like it's almost like a part 2 to the training. And you kind of like, yeah, it's like you're not like feeling that excited about it, but you're like, there's something like a really big light bulb going, but that's where like there's something really important about that piece of it.
Yeah, almost. The more that I see it and the more that I like sit with it and be with it, the more I get excited about it, actually. So I think
hilarious.
Yeah. And if I could just add like the last little thing, I know my time's up, but I want to notice and acknowledge like this irony almost in the training where we keep running out of time. Like with the training, we can only do so much, and so the irony I'm seeing is that a lot of that behind the scenes logistical like administrative work, I think, is going to involve like solid time management. Something that I need to work on for myself is like a, you know, as an aside, but something that I think is like a very natural thing, like, you know, learn how to do the process, and then step 2, learn how to organize the process, learn how to bring other people from your community in here and really like, you know, virus this thing, like exponential this thing.
Yeah, cool. I'm conscious of the time, but I want to make sure that you can really play hard. Good.
We've passed time in this one. Yeah. Do you want to just briefly let
cool
know you heard him?
Yeah, I've heard. I'll just make sure that so he's like, So the time management is the big bit around the admin piece, but you think like that going through that process will also help. And then it's like, how do you make this go viral is really kind of, really kind of locking in that whole aspect of it.
Yeah, like it feels very natural to me. You got it.
Nice.
Nice. Thanks,
Cool.
Michelle. I feel super heard.
Nice. Sorry for going over you. Thanks, Celine. Rita, could you hear me if you don't mind listening?
Yes, I'm listening.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so oh my goodness, in like 5 minutes I've just shifted from like, I don't know, something kind of a like just into like just this like aliveness. And yeah, it's what I think it's what I love about these circles, is just that like, yeah. And it's I really enjoy that with the training, is that like the type of people that are drawn into facilitation and doing training and movements like this, they're gems, they're magical beings. I'll pause there.
So you've noticed that you've shifted from one particular space, you didn't really name that, but you've shifted into aliveness. And so it's just something that you really enjoy about these trainings and sharing and hearing from people.
Yeah. And yeah, there was something, I think there was something that came up earlier that came up into my awareness. I think it was when Bill was talking about being a teacher, and with like the school, and with the something came into my bubbled up afterwards that was like around this piece that I remembered going, because I see empathy as like relational meditation. It's like you know where two or more are gathered, there is like this kind of greater force, like, and I think in that space is where there's so much in there. It's just so like, there's so much. And like, but I remember once seeing a training video online for meditation that was done by the Cookie Monster, and it was like the best meditation training I ever watched. Like, it was like, yeah, like now I get it, like. And I'm like, I'm wondering, do we need like to ask the Cookie Monster to do a like empathy circle like animation, like or like a how-to video for us was there. Like,
you really liked what Bill said, something around when he was talking about education, and what came up for you was around like the empathy circle feels like a relational meditation for you. So like this real connection with other people as it happens. And then you had the idea of the Cookie Monster doing a meditation, and when you experienced that, it was really impactful to you, and you're just kind of wondering, like, is that a method for engaging more people to get the Cookie Monster to do an empathy circle?
yeah, exactly. Like, so like this like as facilitators, like just playing, and this is like, is there like something in playing with play, like of like, if we design the training for children, like, will that speak to adults like in this really profound way?
So right now you're really just having the idea, and you're considering, like, if we design the training to be entertaining for or engaging for children, then maybe it will be accessible for adults too.
Yeah, like that's what works for me. Yeah, like, yeah. Yeah, and like, so as I say that, like, that's what came up, like, but and yeah, like that just came up as a kind of a, like, just in that, like, a feeling of like of wanting to contribute something. But like my feelings on the training, like that's happened so far, is that it's fantastic. Like it's world class. You know, it's been really like, and I'm like deeply moved by the generosity and the just amount of time, like that all of the like trainers are giving, and like that all of you guys are giving, and that like Edwin's giving, and like, you know, Bill and Lou and Dave and everyone, and that it's like, that's, you know, it's really like, it's more just like, this is only just coming from a place of like feeling I should try and kind of add something, if that makes sense, rather than like, as it is, I think it's already magic.
Mm. So you feel like you've received a lot of rich things from the training, and like you feel very like heartfelt about it and grateful for the effort that the trainers have put in. And yeah, and before that you were mentioning that that this idea of making it more accessible to, you feel like you want to contribute, and you have an idea of maybe wanting to contribute in some way and making this more accessible, because you really relate to the empathy circle and meditation being described by puppets, or in a fun kind of accessible way. And so you're having thoughts about that.
Yeah, I feel heard. Cool.
Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Celine, will you listen to me again?
Yes. Wait, let me make sure I turn this on.
It's nice to kind of hear bits and pieces of people's reflections. I'm just kind of, I always need a little bit of time for it to like land. So in the world of that person that I'm listening to, and then kind of need to reorientate to kind of feel and sense like what has moved through like our whole conversation together. But I remember feeling very like, connected to certain things that people have said. I just don't remember them in this moment right now. So, I'm just gonna let it land while I listen to your thoughts.
So what I'm hearing is that it takes you a moment to orient and to land and to come back to kind of the starting place for the next things you want to think about and say.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just feel like a great connection to this shared experience, and even in the bigger group, like when everyone was doing their check-ins, I was really feeling this warmth that doesn't come all the time, you know, it's not always there in every empathy circle, like unconditionally, but it sort of like builds in a really lovely sort of like simmering way as you know, like as I'm become more familiar with people, and you know, I hear bits of their story, and it's kind of like the heartfelt connection comes in like unexpected moments that are like never planned, you know. So sometimes I crave them to be there when they're not, and then I just accept whatever, you know, kind of is there for me, whether it's like sometimes like boredom, or this niggling like dissatisfaction, or wanting it to be better, or wanting to be heard and understood by the broader community, like out in my world. And then other times like the loving connection really like lands, and it's like, wow, we've created a beautiful community here.
So you find your role, your participation in this empathy circle and the training, the facilitation, has been to bring you warmth and really heartfelt connections as you checked in each week, and heard from people, the participants, that there was a shared experience, and that you really touched into what was going on for them. And there are times when you would like to be heard in that way in the larger community and in the rest of your life, perhaps, but you are nourished by the connections that you have in the empathy circle practice.
Yeah, and I guess I know that it's like part of the, well, I guess the way I see it, it's like part of the journey to, to be with the loving and grateful moments when I can feel that, and be with the uncomfortable or the bland moments, too. Because I think in our society, we've sometimes, thank you, just crave joy and happiness all the time, and are not as accustomed to being with the discomfort or the boredom or the uncomfortable emotions. And there's a beauty that in this slowing down, we make space to practice being with the uncomfortable. There's that opportunity, whilst maybe sometimes it's also still like a struggle or an edge for people to, settle and be like, it's okay, whatever is happening, anxiousness or frustration or boredom, it's a learning, it's an edge that people learn here.
So you see that there's all the pleasure and the depth and the satisfaction when there is connection, when people are expressing themselves authentically and deeply. But then there's also times when it's kind of boring, or maybe even uncomfortable or disagreeable, and you hold it all as part of each moment, part of life. That sometimes it's going to be enjoyable, and sometimes you have to make the effort to accept it as it is.
Yeah, and I just want to say one more thing, that it's not that the situation is boring or intrinsically one particular way that I judge it. It's just that I'm kind of observing my own experience and everyone else's experience in this kind of meta way, where it's I know that I color my own experience in whatever way I choose or I'm patterned to, and that's happening for everybody at the same time. So it's just sometimes that feels like a lot to navigate.
So you have this kind of global perspective sometimes in watching and knowing that different people are going through many different, a gamut of experiences. Some are pleasant, some are unpleasant, and you are having a perspective that holds all of that, and it knows that it's like a moving stage, many different experiences going on for everybody.
Yeah, and I wonder how to get better at navigating that and holding that complexity while staying grounded and focused on my intention without getting swayed. And I know that just takes practice.
So you're seeing kind of like your path of skills, growing skills, so that you can stay grounded and attending to the moment at the same time that you have a broader perspective of what's going on.
Thank you so much, Celine, for listening to me for a little bit longer. I really feel heard.
Okay, so I guess I go again, and well, I don't know. AC, would you listen to me?
Sure.
So one of my challenges in this has been that I come from a background of NVC, more than a background and a foreground of NVC. And I got it right away that this is quite different. I'll stop there.
So I hear you identifying a challenge in the differences in this method versus your background and foreground, which I'm a little, I have questions about that I know I shouldn't, but you're noting a difference in the NVC that you're familiar with versus this form.
Yes. Well, foreground, because it's the main thing that I do and have been doing since from over 20 years, 25 years.
Okay. So foreground in the sense that that's what's going on right now. So background in like, okay, here's how you were trained, but foreground is like, here's what I still do also.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And I decided to share some of this just as a small skill with my group that I'm currently working with, a small group of women, mostly older women. So I'll stop there.
Okay, so you're taking this practice and sharing it with a group of women. You said older women that you work with.
Yes, I tried it just as a skill of listening in this way instead of the way that NVC does it, where you're guessing feelings and needs when you listen.
Okay, so trying the skill with them, stepping into the practice of just listening without adding those questions about what they might need right now or what they might be after.
Yeah. And it was hard. It was difficult. And some of the women, it was no, it's much easier to be guessing feelings and needs than, I think it's the focus, the focus, and also the memory, remembering what has been said, and keeping that focus instead of going to something maybe softer and more intuitive.
So like searching for and maybe digging for those needs might feel more intuitive than it does to sit with the focus and remember, just absorb what's being shared in that more reflective manner.
Yeah. So I'm enjoying this new, a different perspective, and I think, and I want to keep sharing it as a skill within the NVC experience, because I think it's a very, very valuable skill.
So this practice, while it's challenging, you find it very valuable, and you're enjoying the challenge and the building the skill in the NVC community.
In my little group only. Yeah.
In your corner or what have you.
Yes. Yes. And well, I would like, for anybody, I think it's a very valuable skill to hone, to develop. And I want to keep doing it.
So I hear that you're excited about the skill, that it's valuable to you, and you think to the larger circles as well. And I hear your enthusiasm with wanting to move forward with it.
Yes. And two things that because my time is coming up, that I want to just put out as something I'm thinking about. One is what to do when I haven't heard a word or something that somebody has said or haven't understood. I haven't seen it modeled how to ask. And And I experienced that. I experienced it today with Rita, because I didn't get a certain word and I just kept going, kind of pretending. That's one. And the other is that I think it's, there have been many times when I felt that the person was not reflecting back all of what the speaker had said, but we're very generous and we say, oh, yes, I feel fully heard. And I thought, I don't think that happened. So I don't know what to do with those. Those are two pieces I want to learn more about.
So I'm hearing 2 points of curiosity. One is in the listener role, what to do when you just miss a phrase or like a run or something from what the speaker was saying, and how to ask for the clarification therein.
Yeah.
And the second curiosity, as maybe more of a in the facilitator's role, watching an interaction and maybe cluing into the fact that the listener hasn't reflected or maybe has missed something that the speaker said or is looking for, where the speaker in this case is being polite and saying like, yep, oh yeah, it sounds good. So yeah, these 2 points of curiosity for you, what to do in them in those situations.
Yes. Thank you. I feel fully heard, AC. Thank you very much.
Right on. Thanks, Celine. Yo, Bill, how you doing?
Good.
Listening?
Yeah.
Right on. Can I ask you questions as the speaker? Is that in the game?
You can ask questions. I just won't. I'll just reflect until it's my turn to speak.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'm sure I have some questions.
Okay.
I have similar questions, I guess, to Celine. Those 2 questions about what to do in those scenarios, where like, and I'm guilty for it sometimes too, right? You're just like, you think you're listening, and then for whatever reason, I don't know, it's like a word kind of derails the whole train of thought, and I lose like my focus, my presence, or whatever. Oh wait, snap.
So I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So you're resonating with what Celine said, that when you're a listener, sometimes you're trying your best, but sometimes you're distracted or something happens, and your question, how do I recover from that? How do I, yeah.
Yeah. And then our other point too about like facilitator, at what point, and maybe like what methods do we have to be like, well, do you feel fully heard as a speaker? Like, kind of gently asking like, or are you just being polite here? Like, do you feel fully heard, or is there more that you like to maybe kind of encouraging those?
So the second question is also what Celine said, is that when you basically hear a reflection that's incomplete and the person says, I feel fully heard, it's a question of, as facilitator, when do I intervene to try to flesh it out or not?
Yeah. I'm thinking back now to the past 2 weeks, and in our breakout groups, like when we're practicing these circles, some of the challenges that were popping up in the list, I think that might have been one of them in like the more spicy category of like, oh yeah, so yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I appreciate the like the sandbox and the like the designed kind of challenges that have been incorporated into this into this training, and like really the experience kind of that sits behind that, being like, yo, check it out, here's some things that might go awry, and giving us the opportunity to play with those. I think those are great.
So you like that. And sandbox, I assume that's a video game reference. It's kind of an open world.
Yeah.
And so you're in that context, you're talking about these challenges as, experiencing challenges you might see in the real world. So that's a, simulation of experiences you might have, and you appreciate that.
Yeah, totally. And just the dedicated time too to sit and kind of play with it is I think really valuable as like a student, as someone who's like learning, just to play with it and kind of like explore the realms. I find that very, very helpful. personally.
So you're finding that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you appreciate the practicum. In other words, the practice of it in real time to basically explore and check things out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that and the whole community. I don't know. My turn is quickly turning into like, I just love this so much.
Okay, so yeah. And then the other thing is that behind that, there's this larger community that you sense building behind it. And you're very excited about that. And you're really kind of opening to it.
Yeah, totally. I find it very encouraging to know that other people are on the same path and have like similar goals, values, and just like maybe aspirations or whatever. So that the peership, like the collegial kind of nature of it, just having other people in the same boat, being like, yo, you're doing this thing, and it can be kind of informal too. I find that very valuable. So like the buddy calls and just like the whole thanks, just like the whole like the friendships that just emerge out of this, right? Like the colloquial nature of things, that the amicability and such.
Right. So you really appreciate, and it's very powerful for you, that there are other people who have the same values and trying to create the same world as you are. And so that really, that touches you deeply.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, Bill. I feel fully heard.
Okay. And I'll talk to Rita. I'll answer those questions.
Yes, go
We
ahead.
can talk. And I know we have 5 minutes. So if we want to break out and other people want to kind of riff, that's okay. So to both of those questions, as a facilitator, this is my particular, take on it. And, so take it with a grain of salt if you wish, is that, so the issue of when you miss something, what I'm trying to do is that create a communicative bridge. And it's obvious through, failures in software and other things that beyond anybody's control, that sometimes you miss something, or sometimes, like I have a new puppy, and the puppy, earlier I was on a call and the puppy jumped up, and I'm all like, I'm in puppy mode. And, oh, what did you say? It's sort of like, it didn't happen here. But so again, so what I'm looking for is a balance. And one of the things like that I say is that something else is going on. So I find that if I forget, saying I forgot something, I know I missed something. A lot of times I'll know I missed something, and I say, what did I miss here? And I ask, and it's the effort of trying to build a communicative bridge that is more of the point than actually getting the point, than reflecting, that I find is more important. And as a facilitator, you always have, as you practice this, you start to think of when, there are two things that are happening. One is the flow. It's very important. There's a certain flow to these circles. And so that's important. And so I balance with disrupting the flow by interjecting something, or letting it go and see if it develops into a bigger problem or something like that. So and that's hitting, like, as I said before, the sweet spot. The other thing, Lou talks about this, and this is happening when there's someone who just really doesn't understand the process or misses something. And again, I'm looking at, is this a major part of the reflection, so that the person really doesn't feel heard? Like, I don't know, my mother died last night and I can't eat for a week. And you say something like, oh, you're not feeling hungry right now. And so, so you're missing a major part. I might say, well, there's some background to that. Or is it just something like, well, your mother died and, you're upset, but doesn't reflect the hunger, that I'm hungry right now. Well, that gets it close enough. And so in that case, those are two examples, one extreme and one mild, where in the extreme case, I might say something, in the mild case, I might not. It's, again, a sense of that balance between flow and the things. Generally, what I do is, if I see a mistake like that, unless it's really, really egregious, I let it go and see if it happens again. or whether it resolves itself. Sometimes things will resolve itself, and if they can, that's really good. I know I just threw a load of verbiage at you, Rita. I apologize.
That's okay. I'll see if I can reflect.
Uh,
So you on the first question, you know, when someone misses a word, yeah, you were really saying that it's the process is about the empathic reflecting process is just about building a bridge, you know. So as the listener, they can just state that, oh, they missed a word, or was, you know, they can just check in with the speaker, really. So it's more about building a bridge rather than like getting it all right the whole time. Yeah, and then the other one was about
Incomplete
as
reflection.
the facilitator, yeah, like yeah, if the reflection is incomplete, again, it's more about yeah, is it about keeping the flow going?
Yeah, it's a question of evaluating how serious the misunderstanding is, and then also factoring in, you know, can it work itself out by itself? Again, that balance.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, as a facilitator, it's about just like assessing how serious the gap is, or whether it will work itself out over time. So it doesn't necessarily need to be corrected like every time you notice that the reflection hasn't happened properly.
Thanks, Rita. I feel fully heard. And look, and with 3 seconds to go.
See you in the next.
Oh,